Start recording. So chapter 4, learning and creativity. So there's two big parts to this chapter. One part is about how do you navigate through, say, university system to make sure you get all your courses. They talk about that in chapter 4. And they talk about accreditation and things like that. And they also talk about creativity, you know, doing creative things as an engineer, which is part of problem solving, right? Whenever you have a problem, you've got to solve it, and that's when the creative juices start to flow. This is real apropos for next week's guest speaker. We're going to have Stephen Peralta here, so some of you may know him. I think some of you have met him. He's a really good guy, and he's going to talk about the UNM system and how to get in, make sure you take the right classes, don't take classes that you're not supposed to take. My son's girlfriend is in an engineering career pathway, and she was advised to take certain classes, and then she found out later that the advisor didn't know what he or she was saying. So it's always good to cross-reference with either another person, upperclassmen, or check the online information as well, you know. Trust but verify. How many of you have heard that? Right? Trust but verify. Okay, I don't know everything. I might say something that's not correct, so you know, make sure you ask other people as well, because you'd hate to have to do another semester because you got some bad information, right? Okay, enough said. So, you know, there's a lot of navigating through an engineering school, a lot of things to consider. Try to plan things out in advance, semester by semester, all the way to the end, because you have prerequisites and things like that. So if you can't get in your prereq class, it screws you up the next semester. I'm sure some of you have experienced that at CNM, right? There's no prereqs for this class, so you're all taking it at the end. Well, most of you, you know, and it probably would have been better to take it up front, but just the way scheduling works, right? So, you know, that's an important thing. Try to read chapter 4 before Stephen comes next week. Okay, it'll generate a lot more questions. Write some questions down you may want to ask him. Okay. He likes it when you ask questions. You know, that's what he's there for. He's a very helpful individual. Leverage his insight and his skills and his experience. Okay, so before next week, try to prepare. It's always better to prepare for class rather than try to catch up after the lecture. Look at some of UNM's stuff, because that's what he knows, even if you don't plan on being at UNM. Take a look at UNM's different career pathways, curriculum pathways for the different engineering departments, and try to get familiar with what you want to do. And then take a look at, you know, which courses, you might want to look at which courses overlap with the other programs. So if you just started as chemical engineering and say, this sucks, okay, I want to do mechanical engineering, at least you'll be familiar with which courses transfer over to the other career path, right? And most of them do as freshmen and sophomore levels. There are very few starting engineering courses that are specific at the low level. They usually kick in at the upper level. But make sure you ask Stephen about that, because he's the expert. And I can't stress this more. There are lots of services at both CNM and at UNM. There's a lot of free tutoring. You know, if you're getting stuck on something, go to the free tutors. Right? You don't have to pay for them. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you'll get a student that doesn't know much, and he's a tutor, he or she's a tutor, so find another one. You know? But all of the engineering departments have free tutoring. They hire grad students to do it, and they have certain hours and certain places that you can go to and get tutoring for no cost. It can only help you. Counseling is free. That includes, you know, like you're really stressed out and you want to give up, that kind of counseling too, okay? A lot of people get stressed. There's nothing wrong with that. Get some help, you know. Maybe you'll they'll recommend after talking with you. You know, maybe you need to like not work 60 hours a week and try to take 18 credit hours of engineering classes. Because that'll get you committed. So things like that. So, and also career counseling and curriculum counseling or advisement they call it. So make sure you leverage that. Half an hour, something like this, or a tutoring can save you buckets of time, right? Because you could spin your wheels trying to either fix yourself or figure something out, and after a certain point, it's not beneficial. You have to balance your life, right? You got to take care of yourself. So healthcare is important. Part of that is going to work out. I don't do that enough, right? Because I'm teaching a lot this semester and also running the grant, so I haven't had time to take care of my health as much as I should. So, UNM has lots of places you can go work out and stuff. Hot yoga, all that kind of stuff, right? My son likes hot yoga. He's into that, so. And he works out all the time, so he's pretty well balanced and calm. Unlike me, I'm stressed and hyper. So exercise helps. So, take advantage of these free things. Later on in life, you'll probably have to pay for it. And there's lots of academic support, like I said already. So make sure you use those services. It's critical to be successful. Engineering is really hard. Physics is hard. Chemistry is hard. That's why they pay the big bucks. I get $6 an hour to teach. But I like to teach. So. And if it helps somebody in the class, I've done my job. Okay. So this is a big deal. ABET accreditation. It's an accreditation board for engineering and technology. So certain programs and schools are ABET accredited. Some schools aren't. Okay, Stephen will tell you that UNM is accredited. And I believe he will tell you that New Mexico Tech is not accredited. Okay, we'll take it with a grain of salt, but that is one thing you want to look at if you're going to go on to another school somewhere, study something they don't have in New Mexico. See if they're ABET certified or not. See if people hire from that school. Okay, understand the program requirements. Most ABET accredited schools require a year of math and a year of sciences, so that's about 30 credit hours, right? It's usually more than that. Okay, so this is math like calculus on up. They assume you know algebra and trig and all that when you enter college. Okay, they have 1.5 years of engineering courses, which is about 45 credit hours or so. Okay, so you can do the math, right? How many classes is that? 3 credit hours a class or 4 credit hours a class. That's a lot, right? And then humanities, they like you to know some English maybe, and history and art, and those are usually electives. They might require you to do public speaking or economics or something like that. Depends on the program. And then that leaves about a year or so at the discretion of the program. So some engineering departments will just dump more engineering classes in that bucket. Others will give you a lot more leeway. So take a look at that. But ABET accredited schools, these are the requirements. Okay? So there's this important thing right here. Math is key. It's not just calculus, but it's differential equations, linear algebra, statistics, numerical analysis, and there's now a lot of modeling stuff, which is engineering and math related. So, if you're not great at math, keep working it. It's a tool. You can learn it. Work really hard on your math because it'll make all your other classes easier. Right? Physics you have to take, chemistry you usually have to take. Physics is heavy in math as well. Okay? So if you hate math and you don't like it, maybe you should look at something other than engineering, but that's up to you. This is really key too. I usually show a video to to students in my tech classes and some of the high school kids. It's called Did You Know? And you can Google Did You Know? Maybe I'll show it. We have time at the end of this class if I can find it. They have one line in there where they talk about the average 4-year degree. You will learn 4 years of stuff, but by the time you graduate, 2 years of that stuff you learn will be outdated. Okay? It's not actually true, because most of the stuff you learn in the university hopefully is core things, right? Calculus doesn't change every year, right? But engineering, you know, and the programming languages that are out there and all that stuff is going really fast. So you're always going to have to update your skills. So you got to be a lifelong learner. You know, school doesn't end when you graduate. Okay? It's different. You'll go to workshops, you'll go online and take a course. Say you need a special skill set for your engineering job. You might do a MOOC from MIT on, you know, numerical analysis or something, or fluid dynamics or something like that. Does everybody know what a MOOC is?
What?
A MOOC, M-O-O-C. Oh God, what does it stand for? Massive something open course. It's basically, it's free, it's online. You know, 1,000 people can be in the class at once, or 10,000. What's that?
Massive open online course.
Thank you. Massive open online course. It helps to have Google, right? So there's lots of good MOOCs out there to help you update your skills, right? Because really the bottom line is when you're at your job, you're going to get promoted and you're going to get raises if you provide value to your employer. And by learning and constantly being aware of what's going on around you outside your little company that you're working for, you can bring in new things and make sure your company stays successful. If your company's successful, you'll be successful. It's the bottom line, right? And if something happens at your company, which does, you know, somebody buys them out, steals their IP and shuts them down, right? Well, you'll be really smart and you'll know a lot of stuff and you won't have a problem finding a job. Plus you've been online looking at other things, trying to keep up to date so you know what other companies are doing, things that you're interested in. Okay? So creating an ability to apply knowledge of mathematics, science, and engineering, right, is always a good thing. Design and conduct experiments as well as analyze, interpret data. These are skills you have to be a good engineer. Having the ability to design a system, so having a systems approach is also important, not just your little widget you're working on, but how it works with the other parts of the system. Okay? You want to make sure that whatever you design meets the desired needs. You know, the Dilbert cartoons are great, right? You guys ever read Dilbert? I mean, they're awesome, right? A lot of engineers work on stuff they like. The customer could care less about. So don't get stuck in that trap. The ability to function on multidisciplinary teams. What does multidisciplinary mean?
Different types of study.
Yeah, you might work with a chemist, a biologist, you know, God forbid a physicist, right? And, you know, 3 other engineers. And then the guy running it will have an MBA and think he knows everything. So you have to deal with that as well. Okay, unless he's an engineer with an MBA, then they do a little better. Okay, identify, formulate, and solve problems. So you have to understand you have a problem. Yeah, we threw away 10% of the parts, so what? You know, that's a problem. That's 10% of your profit going out the window. 10% of, you know, your employees that you can't pay anymore because something's not working. Ethics is important, right? The only thing you really have is your knowledge from learning and your integrity. And if you lose your integrity, if you do unethical things like fudge data, lie to a customer about delivery times to get the contract and that kind of stuff, you're not going to last long, and your company certainly won't. And communicating effectively is always good. So practice, practice, practice. Yeah, I had this problem last week. Okay. So practice your communication. Now we have this reverse engineer your goals project. Okay, so why am I having you do that? Because, and this is quoted out of the book, proper planning and management of the curriculum will make the educational experience more pleasant and lessen the likelihood of delays in completing the program of study. So what does delay mean? What does that mean to you if you get delayed? You get to stay in school longer? What else does it mean? What's this? It's going to cost you more, right? It ain't cheap. It costs you twice, too. It costs you for the money you spend, on tuition and stuff. Because if you're full-time or higher, it's, once you hit the full-time mark, it's free, right? Tuition doesn't go up. You take 18 or 19 hours, it's better if you than taking 12. Got to work harder, okay? But, so it costs you more money because you have to be in school longer. The other thing it costs you is more money because you're not working, right? Engineers, depending on what degree you get, will get anywhere from 50 to 70,000 with a bachelor's, maybe a little more depending on your skill set. So, if you are delayed a half a year, that's 40 grand, 30 grand, something like that. Plus you spent another 10 at UNM. UNM doesn't mind if you take a little longer, right? Well, they want you out in 6 years. So if it takes you longer than 6 years, they can't check a certain box. Okay, so, they're happy if you get done in 6 years or less. You're happy if you get done in 4 years or less, right? Okay, so think about that. It costs money. So if you have to choose between studying more and getting out earlier, as long as you learn the material and you get good at it, you might want to. All right. So how do you know what to take in college? Well, look at the jobs you want to qualify for. Okay, that's part of this project as well. Okay, so how do you do that? You find job descriptions. So type of engineering degrees required. So you say, I want to, design bobsleds, right? I don't know why you're in a desert, but you decide you want to design bobsleds. So what do you need to learn to do bobsleds? Well, probably fluid dynamics and some aerodynamics and materials, right? Modeling software, all that kind of stuff. So you look for job descriptions for bobsled designer. Good luck. But then you can decide from the job description what type of degrees they hire into. So if you want to be semiconductor engineering, like I was, if you look at the job descriptions, they say microelectronics, chemistry, physics, a physical science. They'll have a whole plethora of things that they're looking for. Okay, so that's a little broader. Others are very specific. All right, and then you read the skills. Some of them will just say, yeah, you got to be able to use Excel and Word really well, PowerPoint, because you have to present. Others will say you need to know Java scripting, C++, Perl, whatever. So you can start to look at the skills that the job is asking for. And then, that year or so of fudge classes, sometimes you get to choose. Look for the classes that will help you get those skills. Don't take hot yoga, okay? Because you can. Take, numerical analysis of bobsled skids or something, right? Look for those specific courses that may not be required but will help you get your job, or your internship, which will help you get your job. Where are the jobs and how much do they pay and what are the bennies? Right? Do you have to stay in Antarctica for 9 months designing bobsleds with the penguins? I mean, it may not be your thing, right? Or it may be. You know, half of us are introverts, so it might be great. All right? So once you have an idea of the kind of job you want, then it's easier to pick an engineering program and the courses you might want to take. Review the courses and select the best electives to reach your goals. Okay? So most of you. But hopefully there's some incentive in there. All right, so you want to chart your curriculum path. That's the homework, right? 4.1 and 4.2 is do a flow chart of the courses you're going to take and what the prereqs are and all that. That goes into your project report. Okay, that's going to be part of what I grade. Okay, start with your college published path. Some students have just copied and pasted that into their report. I would like you to do a little more than that, personalize it. You might not be able to do it in 4 years because you got kids, you got a job, you got to eat, right? Some essential things. So you might say I can do it in 6 and spread it out over 6. Make sure it'll work for you. I want you to personalize it because it'd be nice to get something valuable out of this course that you can actually use. But we'll see. So once you get your path figured out to the best of your skills, then talk to a counselor or two. Okay? The websites on UNM campus website isn't always accurate. If you Google something, you might find a document that's 10 years old that nobody even knows is there anymore. Because they say, oh, you're supposed to click here, and then get the right version. You say, well, I Googled it and I got this version. And they say, well, too bad. Okay, so make sure you have the right version and talk to your advisor. And Steve's really good, Peralta. He'll take a look at what you want to do and he'll, put X's on it and O's and all that. It's always good if you can find an upperclassman, okay, or some of the grad students, right, that went to UNM, right? Don't ask a grad student that went to Indian Polytechnic Institute because their advice is worthless for UNM. Okay, they had a different background, so you can always ask an upperclassman. They'll tell you which professors are good. They'll say, don't take it from this guy, take it from that guy. And ask them why. And if it's an easy A, well, then you might want to reconsider. My wife used to interview professors before she took the course. It was the most bizarre thing. I never knew anyone else who ever did that. But she would go ask the professor, what are you going to teach? What's the book? How many projects? All of that kind of stuff. So, it's fair game to do that. Go talk to the professor, especially because it's your career, right? You want somebody good. You want to learn something useful. Be aware when the classes are offered. Sometimes they're not offered every semester. Sometimes they're only in the fall when Professor so-and-so is not on sabbatical. Or only in the spring when he's not in Malta teaching at the other place. So, a lot of classes are only taught by one guy and they kind of pick when they do it. So you need to find out when they're typically offered and make sure that fits into your schedule. And there's some oddball classes that are only offered once in a while. Those are the primary ones you want to make sure you're ready to take when they're offered. Because that could delay you a year. Right? If they only do it every fall and you're thinking spring, you go, oops, it's not in the spring, it's in the next fall. Then you lose a year. Okay? Your thought. Reality. Because of this hit or miss approach, students must cope with a highly varied cadre of instructors. What does that mean? Get a lot of wing nuts, right? It's a spectrum of, everybody, you classify instructors and you get a spectrum of instructors. And some of them are really good at speaking but aren't organized. Others, are very good teachers, but their tests don't match with their lectures and, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So, You got to be aware of some of those idiosyncrasies. How many of you use Rate Your Professor? How many of you actually contribute to Rate Your Professor? You guys got to contribute to it too, okay? Because if only 3 people have contributed to it, it could have been the professor's nephew, daughter, right? You never know. So
There's also a rule in ratings, that is, usually the people that are angry are usually the ones that rate, so that's what I've seen, so it's,
well,
if you have something good to say, you also need to go out there and say it.
yes, it's like a hotel thing, right?
Yeah.
You look at the hotel, somebody's toilet exploded. Well, that happens.
I've
You
seen
know?
some angry comments on there, you can tell when people are pissed off.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
You can also see how hot they are, right? They have a hotness thing, and it's like, why do you do that?
Which is
Yeah, go look at it, it's
that is
funny.
really funny.
I guess that adds some humor to it, but.
Some of the classes I did too.
Yeah, she wears short t-shirts. Traumatizing.
So, you know, some take roles, some don't, some assign much homework and require that it be turned in and graded, others do not. Instructors may be friendly or aloof, demanding or easy, skillful or inept. Stay away from, where is that? Yeah, I'm inept. Inept, okay? They don't know their stuff, you know, or they don't know the class that they're teaching. They might be really good at their field, but they get stuck with some class that they haven't thought about in 30 years and don't care. You can have a very bad experience. Some are laid back, some are formal and businesslike, yada, 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 right? It makes it more difficult, but it can make it more interesting as well. So, you know, there's lots of demands on you guys. Be careful. So here's some, this is right out of the book. I thought they did a nice job listing these things. You know, come to class. So, you know, Brandon and Aaron and Zachariah and Emil and Javier. You all here? Did you sign in? Maybe I glitched. Which one are you? Oh, well, you got to sign in then, right? Or are you in here? I don't have my glasses. Anyway, attend classes. That's always important. Even if the classes suck, because the professors get to know you. If you're always there every day, they start to get to know you, and that can be beneficial because, you know, if they finally connect your name with the homework and you do well on the homework and you do well on the tests, they may turn around one day and say, I need an undergrad to help me in the lab. Then you're in, right? Then you're golden, okay? Quiet place to study always helps. I don't know, my kids tend to say they can study with the TV on and stuff. And I don't know, engineering's kind of tough. Physics is tough. You probably should do it in a quiet place and focus. We got great libraries on campus at UNM. That's always a good place. I used to go hide in the libraries in the stacks somewhere, and they had desks everywhere. So, yeah.
This is kind of a tangent question, but can CNM students go to the UNM library?
Sure, they don't take, they don't check your ID. You can go, in fact, there is a relationship between UNM and CNM. You can actually use the library there. You might have to go through some process to get a UNM type of library card. Members of the community can get a library card and use UNM. Most of the stuff, though, is, you know, you use there most of the time. They have banks of computers that are high speed. What's nice about UNM is they subscribe to just about every journal, scientific and engineering journal on the planet. So if you walk in there, you can get any article you want. So if you're interested in designing blades on bobsleds, you can find articles on that in the IEEE magazines. Okay, so that's all free. And then you can print them out for some, like a nickel a page or something if you want to take a hard copy with you. Once you're a student, you can just download it onto your computer and be off campus. That's why a lot of times the libraries are almost empty. because people do everything online now, but they access the library materials. Okay? That's what I do. I hardly ever go to the library, but I can get any article I want because I'm faculty there, and it's the same for students. Okay, get into a routine that helps most people. You know, get up at the same time every day. You know, say I'm going to study between this class and this class. I'm going to do 2 hours of homework, and stick to it. Because if you let things pile up, you know, then you don't do as good of a job. You're rushing just in time. Demonstrate an interest. This goes along with attend classes. Don't just show up and sleep in the class, but actually stay awake and try to get what's going on. Record points of significance, right? If nothing else, it keeps you awake, taking notes. All my stuff's posted, so you can, you know, you can go back and read the notes. So you don't have to write everything down like in the old days or record it on a tape recorder. Yeah, I like this quote. The process by which the material in the professor's notebook gets into the student's notebook without passing through the mind of either. Okay? Got to be careful of that. You write everything down, but you don't think about it, you're going to have trouble remembering it. Ask for clarification if something's not clear. This helps the teacher get better too. Okay, if people keep asking about the same thing. I don't understand how you take the triple integral of this to get that. Then they'll have to rethink, how am I teaching it? Nobody's getting it, okay? But if everybody just sits there and nods their head, they don't want to look stupid, guess what? Then everybody's stupid, right? So ask questions. You know, I tried cramming in college. You know, eating a bottle of No-Dos and all that stuff that's down here. Avoid the need to cram on the night before an exam, okay? Cramming doesn't work. I tried it. And then review for a couple hours and go to a movie or something and then take the test. Okay, more stuff. Approach your work with a positive mental attitude. If you approach your work and think everything sucks, then you're probably not going to do well. Develop a habit of attending class. We already said that. Taking quizzes, exams, yada, yada, yada. Preparing for a difficult quiz or exam, visualize yourself taking the examination. Develop a mental picture. Okay, so some people find that very useful. You know, choking on exams is a common thing. Some of it has to do with not being prepared, and others is just, you know, you get really anxious about exams. So, you know, you got to work on that if you have that issue. When I took my PhD exam, I remember sitting there for 4 hours not writing anything down. That was scary. And then all of a sudden the light went on. It's 3 days of exams. Okay, 8 problems. You can imagine how mind-numbing that was. So I didn't think I'd pass the first time. They always give you 2 tries, but I managed to pass because I answered everything differently than the other 3 students taking it. So they didn't know what to do with me. They were theorists. I was an experimentalist. So anyway, devote sufficient time and effort to your work. Okay, I spend a lot of time preparing. I didn't have to do this. I could have said, read chapter 4, call me in the morning, you know. Do this so that it will help you when you read the chapter. Puzzles are always good, right? It helps your creativity and problem-solving skills. There's some really interesting puzzles in there. I couldn't figure them out. Too bad they give you the answers, but you know, take a look at those. Solving puzzles helps train your brain. You start to see patterns if you do a lot of puzzles. And patterns are good. If you can start to see patterns, then you can start to see solutions. Okay? So if you have a hobby of doing puzzles or, you know, brain twisters they call them, that kind of thing. That's always good. Okay. You can learn how to problem solve. Okay, it's not a talent necessarily. Some people are faster and better at it, right? Because they grew up doing more of that stuff, taking apart their bikes and their parents' washing machine and that kind of stuff. It's like a sport, right? The more you practice, the better you get at it. And that's really true. So if you're spending 5 hours a week working out and only spending 20 minutes a week on your calculus class, what's going to happen, right? Okay, restating the obvious. All right, creativity. That's like producing something new, right? Mental processes that lead to ideas, solutions, conceptualizations, theories, artistic forms, or products that are unique and novel. And, a lot of times you'll be thinking about a problem for a long time, and then you'll come up with a solution that's unique and novel, right? And then you find out later someone else had the same solution. Doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It just means that you had the same solution to the same problem. That happened to me in grad school. One of the professors I was working with had an idea of solving a certain problem we were working on. And he explained it to me, and so I looked into it, I worked on it. Then I got what he was telling me. I started to understand it. So for me, it was unique and novel. For him, it was unique and novel. So we wrote a paper and submitted it to a journal. This is a really cool way of solving this problem. And one of the reviewers sends us a nice letter back saying, this has been done before. Look up method of moments. So I looked up method of moments. I had to go to a real library because we didn't have internet for that, right? Looked it up, compared method of moments to what we did, and it was the same thing, same kind of path. And I was like kind of bummed. And then the professor, Dr. Zitter, said, yeah, now that you mention it, that did look familiar. But I didn't waste my time. I mean, I learned a lot going through the process, and it was interesting, and I got a lot of experience from that. So, stuff like that happens too. You reinvent the wheel. Nowadays, you can go on the internet. You have to be careful though if you find somebody else's solution to a problem that you're not stealing another company's IP or copyright or patent. You can really get in trouble for that. They do that a lot with programmers. Now there's a group of people that just go hunting for stolen code. So they see an app, they take the app apart, figure out what code's in there, take a look at it. Is the code copyrighted? If it is, they sue them, and they want a piece of the action, right? So, gotta be careful. All right, so this got cut off, but that's all right. Let's see if I can move it over. All right. So creativity. I had a really interesting time in grad school. I came up with another way of doing something that other people have been doing for years, a certain way. And it was an epiphany of sorts. And it has to do with time to amplitude conversion and also with picosecond spectroscopy. So I'll probably do some of this in a minute here and to show you what it's about. But we had a certain problem, or I had a problem in the lab, and I wanted to be able to take data in a relatively fast amount of time, but I kept coming up with a couple of roadblocks. So this homework is posted. Okay, let's talk about that real quick. 4.1 and 4.2 go into your project. So study the curriculum that is published in your university catalog. And if you're going to Tech or New Mexico State or University of North Dakota Aeronautical Engineering or wherever you're going to end up, start there. So look at the curriculum, see how it measures up to the minimum accreditation requirements of the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology. So I want you to do that, that correlation, and then look at and prepare a flow diagram for your chosen curriculum. So semester by semester or year by year, you know, how are you going to take these courses and what sequence you're going to take it. You know, and some schools are quarters and some are semesters. Okay, and then using arrows and things, look at the prereqs. Sometimes the prereqs, they're called hidden prereqs. They're in the course description, but they're not in the flow. CNM used to be notorious for that. Okay, you go in and you want to take a course and you need this prereq, and the prereq's not part of the curriculum, so you end up taking 80 hours for a 2-year degree instead of 70. Okay, they're trying to get around that. I think they got rid of most of that. So some universities do that. They say, well, you know, to take fluid dynamics, you really need the 3rd semester of differential equations, but it's not a requirement for the degree. And they stick it in there anyway. Some professor puts it in there. So, you know, be aware of those things so that you plan on taking that course. Okay, 4.4 is a discussion board question, so you pick one of these and you come up with a solution, okay? And try not to copy someone else's. All right? So that's the homework.